what is liberation. Now, this is very important because I've used that word a couple of times, and also the title of the book is also 40 Steps to Liberation. So it's very important for us to unpack what it is. So instead of me trying to come up with a definition or a description of liberation, I'm going to use the definition and description provided by Adi Shankara. So Adi Shankara provides this very beautiful description of liberation in his Brahma Sutra Bhashya. You can see that on the bottom right of the slide, if you see a small note, now that is basically the source from which I've extracted any content on the slide. So if you see those that's actually the reference, so to say. All right, so you can go back to the source and you can look at it if you would like. So this comes from the Brahma Sutra Bhashya. So here Shankara gives a very beautiful description of liberation. He says that it is about seeing or knowing Brahman. I'll talk about what Brahman is in a while. So what is this seeing or knowing Brahman? So he shares, it is basically seeing Brahman as the supreme reality. Now here the word supreme reality means this is the highest possible reality that is conceivable, right, for a human being. Now, this supreme reality is something that cannot be improved further. That's why it's supreme. That is why it's called Paramarthikam. Means that there is nothing more that can be higher than this particular reality. I use the word higher. I'm using the word supreme. All of these are actually words. They tend to give different ideas, but just hold that thought for the moment and let's see what else comes up. The other feature or a point that he makes is that it is eternal and changeless. So this Brahman, which is the supreme reality, the most fundamental, the core and the highest reality, is eternal. Eternal here means that which exists in all three periods of time, which is past, present, and future. And it is changeless, meaning that it doesn't change. It is a changeless being. And then he says that it is all pervasive like space. Now, this has a very big implication. So the state of liberation is all pervasive like space, meaning that it is everywhere. So Brahman is everywhere. There is no place where Brahman doesn't exist. So it is in every part of the universe. That is why the Upanishad also says Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, meaning Brahman is in everything, everywhere. So the space is used as an illustration to show that all pervasiveness of Brahman. And then it is free from all modifications, meaning that the changelessness is indicated here again, meaning that it doesn't modify, it cannot be altered, it cannot grow as well. All right, that is what this means. And then always contented. This is a very beautiful way to present this. Nitya Triptam, meaning contentment. Here the word contentment, always contented, means this particular being doesn't desire. Now, because desire presupposes duality, meaning I can only desire a thing that is apart from me. So here that word Nitya Triptam, or always contented, means that there is nothing apart from Brahman. Therefore, it is in a permanent state of contentment. There is nothing that Brahman can desire. There is nothing apart from it. So therefore, there is nothing to be desired. Now, the other aspect of always contented mean it is at what I call relaxed. There is no what I call agitation. There is no any kind of chanchala, as they would say. It is there. There is no movement at all. It is always what I call in perfect calm in that sense. And the next one is without parts, meaning that there is no parts within Brahman. It is complete and is homogeneous. So the word here, Niravayavam, means homogeneous. It doesn't have parts. Next one, self-effulgent. Self-effulgent means that it is conscious on its own. It doesn't look for something else to light it up. So here the Sanskrit word here, which says Swayam Jyoti Swabhavam, the word Jyoti, which means light, here does not mean the literal light that we talk about. Here the word light signifies sentience. It means that it is conscious and it doesn't have to borrow consciousness. It is consciousness by itself, which is a very, very important word that is used in the tradition to understand Brahman, almost as a synonym, which I'll talk about in a while. So Here, it means that self-effulgent means it is self-conscious. It doesn't borrow its light like the way the moon does. The moon's light is reflected light, right? The sun is the source of light. So here it is like the sun, not the sun. It is self-effulgent. And it is not subject to dharma or adharma. What does that mean? It means that it is not not subject to right or wrong. That's what it means. And it doesn't produce any results. Which means that it is not subject to action. That's what it means. So there is no dharma, meaning ethics, duties, etc. And neither does it have any form of action or karma that produces results in the 3 periods of time. And the last point that Śaṅkara says, it is bodiless, which is ashariratvam, meaning that it is without any body. So therefore, anything that happens to the body does not affect Brahman, or anything that happens to my body or your body does not affect Brahman. This is what it means. Liberation means liberating yourself from the cycle of births and deaths. That's the most popular, what we call as a definition of liberation. So liberation destroys rebirth. But to be honest, rebirth is something that in the Vedic tradition is taken as something that can be viewed as creating suffering and sorrow. So not for all, not everyone would experience rebirth to be something sorrowful. Only a few of what I call some rare individuals or very small population that would actually find rebirth to be a problem. And the moment we find rebirth to be a problem, what it indicates is something else deeper than rebirth. So when we look at liberation, the real purpose of liberation, though we know from the tradition that it is to destroy rebirth, but there are more things that can be unpacked from the word rebirth. The first one is sorrow. So actually, what does rebirth here mean? Rebirth implicitly means that I am in sorrow. I find that living or whatever that I am doing, action results, and then eventually after the body falls, another birth, all of that actually creates sorrow for me. Or the next experience an individual may have is suffering. They feel that they are suffering. There could be afflictions, and that could create suffering. Then there is this feeling that I am not happy. And along with that, there is another feeling, self-inadequacy. To me, self-inadequacy is very powerful because many of us, either we are conscious or we're not conscious about this self-inadequacy. Now, the reason why we find the need to improve ourselves, the reason we feel that we need to improve ourselves itself means that we feel that we are inadequate. Therefore, we think that by doing something, we can become adequate. So again, destruction of rebirth also means the destruction of self-inadequacy. And then lastly, it can also be the destruction of existential crisis. In psychology, many of you may know or may not know that existential crisis can refer to anxiety, can refer to depression, it can refer to chronic unhappiness, and all of that. So the liberation that destroys rebirth in the process also destroys existential crisis. While rebirth is something that we cannot see, it happens, after the fall of the body. However, sorrow, suffering, self-inadequacy, and existential crisis are something that we experience in the here and now. So the value that liberation creates for an individual is that it removes sorrow, it removes suffering, it removes self-inadequacy, and finally also removes or destroys existential crisis.